So EABC through GIZ SEQUA program, we conducted 2 studies. One looking at the global crises or global shocks and their impact on our food systems. Then another one on profiling or investment opportunities within agriculture sector in the region. So those two studies revealed important aspects that the region is incapable of providing the required food, nutritious food for our population. And a big number of our population are now experiencing hunger. And that has a detrimental impact in terms of productivity, in terms of wealth creation. So we need, as the EABC, as the private sector and the government, we need to work out a formidable and a viable solution to address food security in our region. So we realize that there is a number of aspects we can do. One of the aspects is contract farming, which entails that the smallholder farmers have to enter into an agreement with the buyers, or including the supermarkets, in terms of the standards that are required, in terms of production volume that are required, so that we address what I always call information asymmetry between the producers as well as the buyers. Another aspect, we realize that we have a number of actors, a number of agencies involved in the food related value chain. But there is lack of coordination and collaboration and partnership among those agencies. So we've engaged East African Grain Council, we've engaged East African Farmers Federation, we have engaged AGRA in terms of how do we work together a formidable and a viable solution to address the food insecurity in our region. So there is that commitment. But also there is a commitment from our governments, especially Ministry responsible for agriculture, livestock and fisheries, that they need to work with us. They need to work with the private sector to unlock that challenges. So that's what we are doing. And we've made a commitment that we need to establish as a region what we call East Africa Food Alliance. Food Alliance meaning that we have committed ourselves that the region should not really continue to suffer or experience food shortage. We need to streamline our food systems. We need to work with governments to address non-tariff barriers around the borders, so that food coming from Uganda or coming from Rwanda or from United Republic of Tanzania should not be subjected to those border-related hurdles, procedures by the customs, which are very cumbersome, so which frustrates our farmers. We need to ensure that we have appropriate and modern storage facilities to address post-harvest losses. Currently, the region loses almost 49% of its output. It is a shame, it is a very absurd that our infrastructure are unable to support our food value chain. So we need also to improve transport and logistics around the food value chain. We need to address issue of standards, issues of aflatoxin. So we need to bring on board Standard Bureau in terms of harmonizing their procedures, their processes, so that there is a coordinated and a coherent system in terms of how we handle our food. As East Africa, we should be a food basket for the entire continent. There is no reason why we should not be driving food security around the continent. But our systems are not shock-proof. They are not shock-proof. That's our systems are very fragile, they are very volatile, and that frustrates the farmers. We're also calling upon the bank. Our financial institutions have been risk-averse. They don't want, the banks have not engaged into agriculture. And there is a lot of opportunities, but our banks are very coward in terms of their lending systems. That's what we are coming as the EABC, that we need to bring our financial institutions on board to ensure that they are able to lend to the agri-investors, agri-entrepreneurs, even the youths and women who are in the entrepreneurs can get venture capital, can get funding instruments that is easy to access, that is affordable. So we need to bring all the actors together in terms of addressing these issues related to food security, but also nutritious food. Currently, the study we've also conducted indicates that however much we are trying to even to produce food, it's not about food sufficiency, but it's also to produce the necessary required food with appropriate calories for our people, for our children. So that's what we are doing, and I'm happy all the actors are coming together. They are ready to join the efforts, they are ready to provide partnership, and again, strongly appreciate and commend the work by GIZ. The German corporation have done quite commendable work, and they are very committed in terms of addressing the global food hunger issues across the region, but also at the continental level. They are playing a very catalytic role in terms of providing resources, financial as well as technical support. So it is exciting that we have these 2 days event here in Kampala, and we plan to have a national workshop across all EAC partner states, including South Sudan, DRC, and other EAC partner states, so that we address these issues of food insecurity across the region.
My name is Absinger Wabogo, Ugandan Director for East African Business Council. I'm a board director on the East African Business Council board. For example, the current workshop you are covering on contract farming will go a long way to solve all these issues we have. The moment you go into contract farming, though the contract farming is voluntary, the main point in it is that the buyer specifies the quality. And the moment we start from the farmer, then and we get the quality well, then we address all these issues we've been having, let's say the grain issues of aflatoxin in Tanzania, in Kenya, South Sudan, all those will be addressed. Because on the inset now, the farmer is organized, the farmer gets support from the buyer, and the buyer actually, the main thing in that contract are 2 things. One, the indicative price at which the farmer will sell his produce. 2, the quality that the buyer wants. And that is the most important thing to engage in now. The rest of supportive measures like post-harvesting, handling, of course will follow suit, because the buyer wants to get the right commodity. And all these issues of standards, specifications will equally be addressed. We will have an organized way of doing farming, not only for grains, but for all crops that we can put on export market and earn better money. East African Business Council is an advocacy body, and we're looking at it internally. This was came from looking at food security. If you remember, during COVID, the first thing the government had to do in all countries, including Uganda, was to give citizens food. So everybody was looking at the government as the only source of providing food. So that put us to a learning that we do not have enough food security. And therefore, yet our country is endowed with natural agriculture means. We have very good arable land. So East African Business Council, being an advocacy body, took it upon us that as we work on the food security, we should look in a way on how to increase on this food security. So going forward, we start with the first thing first. First, you must have the right seeds. Second, you must have the right farmers. And these farmers must be properly organized and regulated. And that's how we come into contract farming. And with contract farming, then there is price, then there is quality. And then that's the only way we'll have enough food in our countries. Contract farming has been in place, though here in Uganda it's not in our constitution. But our neighboring countries like Kenya, it's embedded in their constitution. But here, what can I say? If you look at the tea industry where the factory is, around it, you have what they call out growers. These outgrowers go into an understanding with the owners of the factory. So they grow tea and they sell it to the owner of the factory. Definitely the tea they grow there must be of good quality. They must pluck this tea at the right time. So all those issues. So those farmers have been getting a lot of money. Sugar industry, they've already been exercising that. Personally, I work with Mkwano Group. We've already been in contract farming on sunflower and soybean in northern Uganda, dealing with about 150,000 farmers. So the contract farming in this country has been there but silent. Different buyers working with different farmers to make sure that they promote what we call contract farming. What EABC is doing, it is the best practice to bring all farmers on board. What do you need first? The workshop we're having now is to train trainers who will train farmers to show them the benefits of contract farming so that it can be embraced. And maybe later on, there's proper legislation in the country and it's embedded in the Constitution of Uganda. With contract farming now, you know how many farmers you are dealing with, which crops are they dealing in, what capacities do they have, and therefore you also work side by side to know on food security. Because some of these foodstuffs they will be growing are not edible. For example, nobody eats sugarcane. Nobody will eat coffee. But now there are other tubers like potatoes, cassava, maize, etc. will also fall into the same trend. The numbers we are looking at now, they are starting with 25 trainers, for trainers, and then we see how it goes on and we'll evaluate. But we are looking at covering the whole country. Like I told you, contract farming has been in existence, though silently, not actually legislative in our laws of this country. People in sugar industry, people in tea industry, and even in coffee, they know it. But it has not been going to the small farmers.
My name is Cesar Rico. I represent a Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture of South Sudan in this training or in this workshop. The need for contract farming is bringing us to the reality that there must be a good relationship between the farmers and the agro-dealers. The buyers, they have their objectives, and the farmers also, they have their objectives. And you cannot just do farming for the purpose of survival. Of course, you have to increase your production so that you should have extra and you sell out to other communities, other countries, or even beyond, to those who don't have the same commodity that you are producing. Contract farming is not taken momentum yet in South Sudan, but in most situations it is in informal way. You may find that the agro-dealers come to the farmers and start booking the harvest of this year. Or at least they enter into some negotiation in a traditional way that this year we are going to coordinate in order I can get from you some products. This is the situation mostly in South Sudan. But the formal contract farming in South Sudan is minimum. And through this training, a South Sudanese delegate are going to learn and lead organizing and also advocating for contract farming in a formal way.